Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'm talking to returning guest Julia Mercado about Daredevil Born Again. But first, Donna couldn't make it this week, so Violet Hammond is joining me to talk about new stuff from the last week. How's it going, Violet?
It's going great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. Yeah, unfortunately, Donna could not make it this week. I'm not sure exactly when she'll be back. But in the meantime, I tagged you in to help me out on the early part of the episode. I thought about doing it myself because, it's just about me talking about, things I saw and did or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I gotta have somebody else on because it's just weird if I'm just talking to myself. So I
Then
don't
you
know how
thought,
Donna does it on her
yeah,
podcast.
you were like, who else goes on my crazy tangents? That's
Right?
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
No, I knew. I was picking up what you were putting down. I knew. I know what the assignment is.
exactly. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm gonna go ahead and start first. I went and saw Final Destination Bloodlines this last week.
Ooh, I've
Yeah.
I've heard some things about this. Okay.
So I had a blast. It might be my new favorite Final Destination movie. It was
Really?
crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. So, have you watched any of the Final Destination movies?
Of course not.
I just had to ask, you
Of course not.
occasionally watch some stuff.
I've
They are
seen
they are pretty
yeah,
gory, so
they're gross. I think I saw maybe like half an hour of the first one and
yeah,
thought, nope,
they're
not for me.
yeah. That I
Yeah.
know you are a person who would cringe at like the slightest bit. I was cringing at this, and I don't cringe
Oh,
that much, yeah. So it's really intense. So yeah, no, the Rube
oh,
Goldberg
jeez.
kills are great. There's a nice
Mm-hmm.
little it involves the whole family this time, like trying to save each other and everything. And then uh uh it's really good. Tony Todd's last performance
Yeah.
on screen, so it was a really good send off for him as well.
Mm.
So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Most of the people that I've seen online that I follow on Letterbox, they all enjoyed it too. So I was glad to see that especially. So, and I will be covering the entire series later on in the year on the show. So
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
Yeah, so definitely
Ugh.
yeah, it's definitely a series I've been wanting to do for a long time. I actually previously did an episode of a podcast called Fishnets and Philosophies, where I was on the episode for the fifth Final Destination. So I
Oh,
previously talked about one of
you've done
them.
that one. How many are
Yeah,
there?
this new one is the sixth. Yeah,
Sixth. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's the first one in
Good
quite a
Lord.
while. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, if you're interested or if your listeners are interested, Craig just interviewed Alex Sahara, who plays Uncle Howard on Kneel Before Blog. And it was a really long conversation, and he had a lot to say about the lawnmower
That's funny.
and some other things and how they made the movie and stuff. So it's funny
Oh,
that you were
cool.
like, "Oh, I saw that." And I was like, "I was just listening about that, something I will never see." But
Oh,
yeah, he sounds like a really cool guy. It was a really nice long like hour-long interview with this
wow.
dude.
That's cool.
Yes.
Very
So
cool.
I'll shoot you the link.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, cool. All right. So it's your first time.
It
What
is.
did you bring me for your first thing this
Okay.
week?
So trailers, two pretty big ones dropped in the last 5 days.
Mhm.
So one of
We
them's
might
for a
double up
TV
on these.
show, and what
So,
I'm sure we're gonna double up on this.
yeah.
But one of them's for a TV show and one of them's for a movie. So we
Yeah,
finally got our full Superman trailer. I'm
we
sure you have
did.
that
Yeah.
written down.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Um I got to say I like everything that's come out for this. I'm really looking forward. I really
Me
like the
too.
look
This
of
is
this.
Superman like it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like the I didn't jive with the Man of Steel stuff. I didn't jive
No,
with
me
Zack
either. I
Snyder's
couldn't
because that
stand
was
any of
not
that stuff.
that was not Superman. Like I there was a moment in the movie. I rewatched it not too long ago. And I um did not it was one of those moments where it was like people pointed out all these different moments about how like that's not how Superman would be and everything like
Right.
that. But there was the one moment, and nobody else I had seen had ever talked about it. But there's this moment where Zod like blows a tanker truck at him, and he just kind of like flies up and over it and lets the tanker truck hit the building behind him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was the moment right there where there was something he could have done, easily done, to
Hmm.
stop that from hitting the building, and he didn't. And I was just like, this is not Superman. Like
No.
Zack Snyder fundamentally, and I know I'm gonna, anybody who listens to this, I might get some hate, but Zack Snyder fundamentally did not understand who the character of Superman was. Um,
Completely agree.
and
Yeah.
I just the fact that DC and Warner Brothers even allowed it, like I know they were going for a grittier edge type thing and all that, but it just rang so hollow, and it's like I think this one is going to be so good. Like it just James Gunn has always had a heart to his movies, even when you're
Hmm.
dealing with people like the Guardians of the Galaxy or something else that's like inherently this like kind of, I don't know, heartless, not heartless, but like people who just are rough around the edges, but there was always a heart to them. And I
Yeah.
think that's what he's definitely
Misunderstood.
bringing. Yeah. So go
Misunderstood
ahead.
heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. But
Yeah.
I am thrilled with the look of this so far.
Oh
I
yeah.
really like this trailer. It gave us some more insight into how he's approaching the story, not
Yeah.
just like a bunch of images with some music. Like we had some dialogue, and
Yeah.
like we kind of see what's going on and why people would
Right.
be maybe mad at Superman. And I'm insinuating from this that they're doing the Lex Luthor as president storyline, because they
That's what
said,
it
did
sounded
you,
like to
that's
me.
what it
Yeah.
looks like. They said, did you
Yeah.
inform the president? And he gave that like eye roll. I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to talk to him either.
Well, that was the other thing that I thought was interesting too, because his thing is that yes, he lives in America. Yes, was born in America and everything like that, but he's not doing things for America. He's doing things because it's the right thing to do. He stopped
Correct.
whatever this war was because it was the right thing to do, not
Mm-hmm.
because he was not an ambassador for the United States or anything like that. And that's what, he's trying to say in that early part of that. And I
Right.
love that's exactly who the character
Who he
is. And I
is.
like love that it's like that he's getting it, and that like I hope this does so well
Yeah.
too, because I really I want to see what James Gunn is doing with this new DC universe. Again, I'm not a huge DC person, but when it's done well,
Yeah.
like I think he's been doing well so far. We talked about it last week, but the Peacemaker season 2 trailer came out last week, and
Right.
that show is fabulous, but totally
Yeah.
in a different like vein. But I think that's what's great is that Superman is definitely going more towards this, very not wholesome, but definitely a better, like more straight up hero vein.
Yeah,
So
which
yeah,
is
I'm
what he
excited.
should be. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm thrilled too. Did you watch Superman and Lois when it was on?
The
The TV
late
show?
80s show, or no,
No,
the most recent
Superman
show.
and yeah, the one that was like
No, I didn't
Arrowverse
watch it.
adjacent.
Yeah.
Well, if you like this, then you should probably like it's so
Mm,
worth the binge. It's so
okay.
good because there is a lot of that back and forth of the military saying you're supposed to be doing this and Clark
Yeah.
saying no, this is the right thing to do. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. Like tiny spoiler, and I'm sorry if I ruin like a good episode for you, but like there's one thing where he can, because obviously he's Superman, he can hear
Right.
things happening and he's always like flying off. So there's a scene where there's a problem that's sinking at like a Chinese, like some, Chinese, Japanese, probably Chinese
Right.
nuclear submarine is sinking. And he goes and he saves them. And then the government is mad because he dropped off the submarine, and they were like, why didn't you bring that back here? And he was like, because it doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, it's not
He's like,
yours.
yeah, so there's a lot of that in the
Yeah.
show, and it handles it really
Interesting.
well. And
Good.
yeah, and oh God, Tyler Hoechlin's like my favorite Superman right now because he is so he's so it's I highly recommend Superman and Lois if you haven't
Okay.
watched it, and if you like that kind of take on Superman and Clark Kent, and it's seeing Clark Kent and
Yeah.
Lois like with teenage sons. So all
Yeah.
of the normal dealing with teenagers, but you're also
Yeah.
Superman. So like it's awesome. It's really awesome.
All right. Cool. Cool. Definitely. All right. All right. Well, my next thing is the In Search of Darkness 1995 to 1999 trailer dropped. I don't think you're aware of it. Um, People in the horror community might be aware of it.
Yep.
The In Search of Darkness series is a series of um, documentaries that
Okay.
they had previously done a series of a trilogy of sorts of 1980s horror documentaries. Basically, they go through like the first three, they would go through the 1980s by decade, and they would
Mm.
highlight one or two movies from each decade, and uh, or not each decade, each year of the 80s,
Oh,
um,
cool. Okay.
and they would talk about those and they'd show scenes from it, but they also had talking heads of like actors, directors, fans, that kind of stuff. So it was like this really great mix of stuff like that. So and then they previously did the 1990 to 1994
Mm.
also. So they, with the 90s, they broke it up into two videos, two documentaries. But these things are long too. Like the first one was like, I think like 3.5 hours, like the first one of the 80s. And then the last one of the 80s was like 5.5 hours long. So
Whoa.
yeah, they are really deep, in depth. I mean, as in depth as they can get, because I mean, they can't cover every movie, but they cover a lot of the big movies. They've
Mm.
also done one on 80s sci-fi called In Search of Tomorrow, which is really good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. And they did previous to all of that, they did one called In Search of the Last Heroes. And that's like a 80s action hero documentary as well. So they've done a lot of good stuff. They've got one also on the Aliens movie. They've got one on The Thing. That
Mm.
they've done like where they just do like really deep dive into each one of those movies. They're really good documentaries, really well done. And I have like helped crowdfund every single one of them, except for the first one of the In Search of Darkness, and In Search of Tomorrow. I didn't do the Aliens or the Thing one,
Mm.
but I've crowdfunded every single one of these. I actually, they did I missed the first In Search of Darkness, but they brought out an Elvira edition later on, like after they had brought out the first one. And so I crowdfunded that one and all the Elvira editions of the first three through the 80s. So I've been doing it. I've been helping to crowdfund. They literally just, this one's trailer for 95 to 99 is out now. And doing they're doing stuff now where you can get your name in the credits,
Yeah.
and stuff. That's until June 9th. Um, but after that, they'll likely have it available for sale again, if you miss it. Um, and they've got like the 80s trilogy all in one pack now. So it's a really good thing to like check out. Like it's really expensive when you
Yeah.
crowdfund it because it's like you get the movie. I mean, it's a great package because you not only get it on Blu-ray, but you get a digital copy of it. You get a digital like soundtrack, but you also get a couple of posters, a sticker sheet, a certificate, and stuff. And you get your name in the thing. Later on, it'll be cheaper, but you won't
Mm.
get your name or any of that other stuff. You'll just get the movie. So I think
Right.
like the 80s trilogy right now is like $48 by itself.
Oh, that's not bad.
So yeah, so it's not bad at all. So
No.
not for what is it, 14 plus hours of content in there.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy.
No, that's not
Um,
bad at all.
no, it's really cool. And it's really good. It's a really, really good series. Like if anybody's interested in 80s or 90s horror, these are the really great documentaries to check out. I believe they're talking about doing a 1970s version as well. So
Oh,
yeah, so
yeah.
it should be pretty cool. So, all right. What's your next thing?
Well, it would be the other new thing that dropped this
Yeah.
week. Okay. Yes, and I'm sure you have it too.
Yeah,
So
this is
we'll just have a
both
we'll just
Superman
have a
and this
nice
other thing were on
Superman
my list.
and
Yeah,
this other thing. So
yeah.
we'll just have extra long sections where we talk about this. Finally, we have a trailer for Ironheart.
Yes, we do.
On Disney Plus. And how long has this sat on the shelf? This was filmed a while ago, right?
I
Couple
think
of years at least.
some of it. I don't know if all of it was filmed, but
Mm,
although I do think you're right, I do like thinking back on it. I do think it has been filmed for a while, and it's just sat on the shelf for quite a bit.
yeah. So I'm glad we're finally getting to see it. The trailers are
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, no, and it was so funny too because I saw people talking about how um the um the trailer dropped in the morning for Ironheart, and then the trailer for Superman dropped
Yeah.
in the afternoon or something. And
Yep.
people were like, "Oh, well, Marvel drops their trailer for Ironheart, and DC goes, 'Hold my beer.'" And it was
Yep.
just like, "Okay, calm down." All right, like we can have two cool things at the same time.
Yeah.
I was excited for both. So,
Yeah.
because I've been wanting to see this Ironheart for a while because it looks like a good show. I'd totally forgotten who was all supposed to be involved in it. I'd
Yes.
forgotten that the Hood was the major villain in this. Um,
Okay, who is that? Is that Anthony Ramos? Because I don't
yes,
know. All right, so
yeah,
I'm not gonna know any of this stuff. So this is
no,
gonna be the kind of thing
yeah,
where I'm gonna need people to like tell me what's going on. But
yeah,
that's fine.
exactly.
I still watch it and enjoy it. I just don't
Yeah.
know the I
Well, I
don't know
think
the in-depth stuff.
well, and they'll tell you in
Yeah.
the show.
So he's a villain.
He is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So that
fine.
cloak he has gives him
Mhm.
powers. And it's in the comic books, it's been given to him by Dormammu, who
Gotcha.
we've
I've come to
previously
bargain.
seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Who we've previously seen in the first Doctor Strange movie. But
Mhm.
people, I guess there's some rumors that it might be uh, given to him by Mephisto. But I think that's
Oh,
people
oh
trying to
my
put
god.
Mephisto in places that they don't like. They're not gonna
They
do. So
can't let it
I
go.
know
When
every
Mephisto
time,
actually shows up, everyone will be so disappointed because they've
right?
been hyping him up for years now. He's actually going to show up, and then everyone will be like, "That sucked. We don't like that." Meh."
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But no, this looks really cool. I love that they, really hyped that Ryan Coogler was involved in it,
Mhm.
and that he seems to have been involved, like being an executive producer on it. He was involved in every aspect of it, from what I've seen. So I'm
Good.
excited for that. Um, and
Yeah.
so, yeah. So it's yeah, definitely going to be an interesting series. I'm excited to see where it goes. There's I think the friend that she's hanging out and talking with
Mhm. Mhm.
is her AI, based
Ah,
on the friend of hers that died.
got it. Okay.
And so it's a comic book thing. I think
Mhm.
that I don't think they
Figured.
mentioned it in Wakanda Forever. So it's something that'll come into play in the TV series. So unfortunately, spoilers.
That's fine.
I just realized it was spoilers. Well, I mean
No.
for the rest of the audience too.
Oh,
I
well, yeah, that
didn't think
too.
about that. But yeah. So but it should be interesting, like, because in the comic book she had Tony Stark as an AI for a little bit as well. So there was a point where Tony Stark was quote unquote dead. And so that
Mm,
was a rumor too, was that Robert Downey Jr. was going to appear as her AI
gonna
in
be the
this. And I
voice.
was like, I
Yeah.
don't think so. I don't think
No,
we're
we
going to
did
get him
something
in here.
else with him.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but it looks good. It looks
Yeah, it
good.
looks great. Look,
Yeah.
as the parent of a woman in STEM, I am proud to support all women in STEM.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, no, I'm excited for it. It looks fun. Lots of different things going on. We got Anthony Ramos
Mhm.
as the Hood, and we got Dominic Thorne as Ironheart, and then we have uh, Alden Ehrenreich from
Yes.
Solo, who previously played Han Solo in the Solo movie. I was like, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
haven't seen him in a while.
Oh, he
Um,
was in Oppenheimer.
yeah, I mean, who wasn't?
Well, I know
So
the whole world was in, but you know what? He was a standout in Oppenheimer. He was
I have
really
yet
good.
to
I
see Oppenheimer. So
really okay.
yeah.
Well, I walked away from there thinking, wow, he was like the surprise star of that
Okay.
movie. He really
Cool.
was. He was great. Yeah. So when you find 4 hours to
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
to watch Oppenheimer, you will most likely enjoy his performance like I did. So that's good.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have anything else. The only two other things I had were Superman and Ironheart.
Oh, that's
You brought those.
hilarious.
Yeah. So, what else
Yeah.
do you have for me?
Well, you may have spoken about this before because I'm not totally caught up and it's not a new trailer, but I needed to shout out the other movie that's going to be opening in July because I know we're all going to be in Fantastic Four. We're
Oh
all
yeah.
going to be in Superman. But
Yes.
I'm a
Oh yeah.
Jurassic Park girl and I'm super
Oh yeah.
excited about Jurassic
I
Park
think I
Rebirth,
think we
Jurassic
might have
World.
talked briefly about it, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. What is it? Rebirth
It's
or
Jurassic
Jurassic
World
World
Rebirth,
Rebirth?
and
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty kick-ass trailer. Like, it
Yeah.
looks good. Scarlett
Yeah.
Johansson looks amazing. Look, I would cross the world for Jonathan Bailey. So I am super. They knew exactly what to do to get me into the movie theater. It gave me
Is he playing the
dinosaurs.
main character?
Jonathan Bailey, yeah,
Okay.
he's the handsome guy in the glasses. So that's
Yeah.
Jonathan Bailey.
I think
So
he's supposed to be playing a Hammond, isn't he? Like,
it looks like some kind of scientist. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Hammond because he's all British.
Gareth Edwards is directing it, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Previously from Star Wars Rogue One. Jonathan Bailey, no, as Dr. Henry Loomis, a paleontologist.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
I knew he was a doctor or a scientist
yeah.
of some kind
So
because
we've
he's supposed
got,
to be the smart guy and Scarlett
yeah,
Johansson is the muscle.
yeah. She's a covert operation expert. She plays Zora Bennett.
Yeah,
She even has a cool name.
yeah, these are crazy names. I love it.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
she's
why I
and Mahershala
love it.
Ali is also in
Yes. Yes. I'm like, oh, these are all people I love. I'm super excited because it's like,
it.
it doesn't need to be like a fantastic piece of art. This is something I'm going to go see on a hot day in July and get a giant popcorn
No, these are
and
giant
see it in
monster movies.
IMAX.
That's all they
Yes.
are. They're like
Love it.
they're the giant monster movies of the new era. And I think that's what makes them a lot of fun. It's like people take these a little too seriously. And I'm like, why? Even the first one didn't take itself that seriously. Like,
No.
it's
I
like
mean,
when people bitched about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull being like too silly. I was like, go back and watch the original movies, please, because the original movies are very silly. So,
yeah.
they're very
Well,
over the top.
well, the second one is insane. If we're
Yeah.
gonna start like ranking Indiana Jones movies,
Yeah.
like the second one is bonkers. So
Yeah.
that's where you get that. But yeah,
But yeah, the
I just want to
Jurassic
go and
movies
have
have,
fun.
yeah, they've always been wild and fun. It's all about watching the dinosaurs mess people up.
Yeah.
So,
There's always kids around for some stupid reason. I was like,
right?
I'm
Every
like, why are
time.
there kids involved here? There's
Like,
no reason for
it
that,
didn't
but
look like there were any kids in this one. I could be wrong.
there
Maybe
are. There's
oh,
kids
okay. I
by the
haven't
end.
seen it.
There's
Okay.
a
I
kid
hadn't
on the
seen the
boat
trailer in
at
a
the end
while.
of the trailer when the
Of course
like,
there are.
when the water dinosaurs are not trying to
Oh,
knock the
too
boat over,
funny.
there's a kid that almost goes over the side and I was like, okay, this is like everything that I want. It's dinosaurs, but you're making it look like Jaws at this point.
Right.
I'm in. Give me the popcorn. I'm ready. So I'm
That's
super
too funny.
excited for July at the movies. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a big month. No pun
Yeah.
intended. Yeah. But yeah, no, it should be I'm gonna go see it because
Yeah.
they're silly fun and I'm down for it. I like the last trilogy, the Jurassic World trilogy. It was good. Um, Especially the last one. I really enjoyed the last one where they brought all the legacy characters back. That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's just fun.
I was down for that. Like that was that last one. I don't know what people were complaining about because that last one was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. I'm silly like that.
Same. Same.
Well, that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
I don't really have anything else. Those were
All
the three
right.
things I wrote down. We got the
Um,
two big ones, so
yeah. Well, before we move on to the rest of the show, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
okay. Sure. best place is my Linktree. It's linktr.ee/violet.h.310. And on there will be links to all the podcasts that have me on to blather my nonsense. Most recently, I was on Real Talk for Thunderbolts. That was amazing because it was me and Sam and Baz. These are all my pals from Film Stories Network. And Baz brought his wife, Gemma, who not only is a huge Bucky Barnes fan like myself, so there was quite a lot of fangirling going on, but
Right.
she's also a therapist. So she
Oh yeah.
explained and really broke down a lot of the focus on mental health in that movie on Real Talk.
Yeah.
And it was great. It's really a nice,
That's
amazing,
cool.
in-depth discussion on it. It was awesome. So, and she was really nervous because she'd never podcasted before, but she was a natural. She was awesome. So we had a great, great time on that one.
That's cool. That's cool. And when does Three Circles appear?
Three
Uh,
Circles is supposed to start playing episodes in June. So I'm
okay.
super excited to get that. That's once again podcast on Film Stories Network, and that's
Yeah,
me and Jeff Owen, and you will be
I
appearing in our
will.
first batch of episodes. It's going to be really cool and fun. That's a Disney podcast, and not just Disney animation, but also real deep cuts from Wonderful World of
Real deep
Disney
cuts,
and
especially the one that we did.
Disney Channel original
So
movies. Yeah, the episode you're on is a super deep cut.
it was so deep cut, we had to actually find a copy on YouTube to
We watched
watch.
it on YouTube. Yep.
Yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
terrible copy on YouTube.
Yep.
But
But
yeah,
got the job done.
yeah.
So
So we'll leave it there.
yeah.
We'll keep that a surprise for you guys. So,
Yes, exactly. Don't give too
but
much away.
yeah, but I know I'm coming on for some good highbrow, like some good high level stuff too. So,
You are.
uh,
Yeah. You're going to have you on a lot. So there's going
yeah.
to be a lot of fun with that show.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a couple of good things coming up. So
Yeah. Cool, cool.
I'll be
I'm
back on
excited.
Frame to Frame soon. Oh, and before I forget, I'm also a co-host on Movieversaries. So
Yeah.
Movieversary is also on Film Stories, and that is where it's like
She's pretty
at
much
Film
only on
Stories
film
all the
stories except for
time,
here.
except for you. Yes, that's the deal. So, yeah, Movieversaries is me and my co-hosts Bo Nicholson, Ian and Andy Williams, and we are there doing movies that are celebrating a significant anniversary. So obviously this year it's movies that were released in years ending in 5. We've had some crazy movies. Jaws for its 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Jean Diamant for its 50th anniversary, which was a trip. A movie I will never watch again, but I'm very happy to have watched.
I didn't know anything about it, so
Yeah. So,
too
yeah, we
funny.
got amazing movies on the docket for
Yeah.
this year.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and subbing in for Donna.
Of
Um,
course, anytime.
yeah. Like I said, I don't know when she'll be back, so I'll probably have you on again in that case. But
Sure.
I'll let you know.
I'll be
Uh,
happy to be here
all
anytime.
right. Well, everybody stay tuned for the rest of the episode. Julia Mercado and I talk about Daredevil Born Again. And yeah, until next time, Violet, stay creepy. On today's episode, we're looking at the Disney Plus MCU show Daredevil Born Again with returning guest Julia Mercado. Julia is a writer, podcaster, and frequent guest on podcast 616, where she is co-chair of the Charlie Cox fan club with Hugh McStay. Welcome back to the show, Julia.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, co-chair is the best title to have, and makes me really excited to talk about Charlie Cox at any time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know you and Hugh over there are big fans of Charlie Cox. I like him a lot too. I wouldn't say I'm like I wouldn't say I'm part of the fan club, but I do like him a lot. He's the best Daredevil we've had so far.
Listen, I've
Um,
loved him since Stardust, so I can say
oh,
I'm
there you go.
committed.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So you're really committed to the Charlie Cox there.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Um, all right. Yeah, let's jump into it. We're gonna talk about the whole season. Hold on just a moment.
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry, my grandson literally came in screaming, crying for some reason.
No
So,
worries.
but yeah, so we're gonna talk about the whole season. Just we're not gonna go episode by episode or anything like that because I don't. There's no real um uh easy way to do that without it taking 15 hours to talk about.
Mhm.
But I just want to talk about this new season, this new series as a whole. What kind of went into it, um, and our general thoughts about it all. Um, so being that you're a big fan, you probably saw the original Netflix, all the Netflix shows and episodes about it.
That
And
yeah.
so what did you feel about this new, like, coming into it? How did you feel about it before it came out? And then how did you feel about it once it came out?
Oh, I was geared up and ready for it, making all the jokes of like wearing all the Daredevil merch before watching the episode. Yeah, I was a big fan of the Netflix shows. Admittedly, the only one I could not get into was Punisher, which is probably
Interesting.
not good for this one, especially. Um, but I remember rewatching at least season 3 of Daredevil. I'm being chastised because my boyfriend's seen it like eight different times, and I haven't. But we were really excited for Daredevil Born Again. Honestly, I know I've been, seeing interviews with like Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio with them getting excited. So I guess the more they
Yeah.
got excited, the more we did. Um, and then once it dropped, it was just like I was anticipating it to be kind of like Doctor Who, and I compare Marvel to Doctor Who a lot because now they've both ended up on Disney.
Right.
Um, and with
Eventually Disney's just going to take everything.
honestly the monopoly of all the long-lasting,
Right.
franchises. But kind of my worry was, that the money would get thrown at it too much, and it's kind of what I
Oh, I got you.
found.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know they did have a lot more money for these episodes. I did see something about that because some people had complained about like a little bit more of the CGI work
Hmm.
that went into this season than had ever been done in the Netflix series, because the Netflix series, like, I think the Netflix series, which is odd because Netflix is known for throwing like tons of money at an idea,
Hmm.
but the Netflix Daredevil series definitely did not feel like that. It felt like they were running on the most shoestring budget ever. That they barely had enough money to get by half the time, and it felt like they really did not put any trust or anything behind it. Um, so, and I'll admit, I only saw the first 2 seasons of the original series. I never, I know, I need to go back and rewatch it. The problem is like I watched everything up until the Defenders.
Oh, that's
So
why.
I've missed, I've missed everything after that. So like I had gotten to the point where I hit the Defenders and I was like, all right, this is all great. I've watched all the shows. I love all the shows. They're all really great, and I need to go back and rewatch them, but I just fell off. And plus it felt like it was starting, and I did that with a lot of the shows, like even Agents of Shield and stuff, where there came a point where the shows were good, but I felt like I liked the interconnectedness, and I felt like without that interconnectedness, it just didn't feel the same. Like it felt like Marvel was just kind of like, these are just shows we do. Like it
Mm.
didn't feel like they cared really. They were letting people just go off and do like fan fiction of a lot of this stuff. And I was just like, it's like I can't get invested. And so but I need to go back and rewatch those now that they're all on Disney Plus and everything. I just need to sit and rewatch them. I haven't rewatched the first season of Daredevil, but I need to get in back into it and rewatch everything and finally catch up there. Because, like you, I hadn't even seen the Punisher series and or that last season of Daredevil, but which I heard the last season of Daredevil was fantastic. So,
Personally, I think it's the best season of the
mm,
three.
okay,
So if you, because I think I had seen it when it first came out and then rewatched it maybe like a few years later and completely forgot everything and was still just as stressed as I was watching it the first time around.
Right.
So it's a ride. You should get on that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of um there's a lot of stuff that was in that season that um some of it gets like referenced in this new series as well, like especially the stuff with Bullseye, um, with Poindexter and everything.
Yeah.
So,
I think
um,
referenced is a good term.
yeah, referenced, lightly referenced, and that was the thing that was interesting for me was because I didn't watch it, and I by the time the new series was coming up, I didn't have enough time to try to rewatch that stuff or watch the third season uh, at all, and so I was like, okay, well, I have no clue where this is going to be at in terms um, of anything, but I heard that you didn't really need to have that much prior knowledge. And that if you came to it with no knowledge of Daredevil, you should be able to understand what's going on. And I
Did you
think for the
feel lost at all watching the first like
no,
15
because
minutes at least?
well, here's the thing. I'm familiar enough with the character. I've read a lot of Daredevil comic books. So at least in that instance, I was not going to be as lost as maybe somebody who hasn't.
Yeah.
So um but it was interesting to um have that opening sequence be what it was because it did feel like it was a holdover of what had happened before.
Mhm.
Like that was like a carryover from that because we had Foggy and Karen, and I knew Foggy and Karen had not been cast. So we should talk about this a little bit. When the show originally was going to come over to Disney, they decided, I don't know why, but they decided to kind of like retool it completely. And the only carryover characters were going to be uh, Matt and Wilson Fisk.
Mhm.
And they were going to just scrap everybody else who had been a part of the show. And they actually filmed it that way and had filmed most of this first season already like that. But then I don't know, somebody I guess finally got a look at it or something, and then they decided to go, oh no, this. I mean, it's working okay, but like it's there's parts of it that aren't working, and so they retooled it, redid some of it, brought in some new people, and uh, brought back Karen and Foggy. I don't remember if Punisher was part of it in the beginning or not, um, but I think he was in part of it. But then they brought him in for I think that final episode that we got this time. I think was probably more of him than there was originally.
Mhm.
Um, so so yeah, I think it was a better idea to do it the way they've done it now. Kind of reconnect it a bit, make it feel like it's a continuation of that Netflix series while also trying to, create a new series of its own to stand on its own, without needing that background. And so I think it did okay. I think it's an interesting um, way to take it because they kind of took it into a like episode of the week kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
each episode is kind of like its own thing. It could kind of stand on its own while also still being part of a bigger narrative. Um,
Yeah. I thought about that, especially with the like the trials for Hector
mhm,
Ayala.
yeah.
And I remember reading articles being like, yeah, Daredevil's going to become like a law procedural, kind of similar to She-Hulk. And I was like, oh, that's true. You're right. We're here in a courtroom.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right that each of them kind of stand alone on their own, especially episode five. Like I kind of want to just
Yeah.
rewatch episode five over and over because that feels in itself like you could pick up that kind of Daredevil comic off the at the
Oh,
store and
yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I try to tell people a lot of times too, is that like if they feel like they're lost with these comic book movies and TV series, that they have to really look at the way they're being done is very similar to comic books, where like these TV series, they're definitely it's like a mini series or like just like a storyline from a comic book that's going on, and then you'll have the one-off episodes that are literally just like a one-off issue where it's just one issue where something's going on. It's a one and done. Um, it's a lot more fun in that way when you look at it, that they have these that they do this in that way, and you can drop in and just watch that one episode. And I think we're talking about the same one, the bank robbery.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that is almost a perfect encapsulation of what Daredevil is, especially in the comic books. It's very much because Daredevil, like that's the thing too. Like people were always like, because I know there were people who were complaining about how he wasn't going to be in the Daredevil suit very much during that, especially during that original run when they made the season the first time. That he doesn't even get into the costume until the fourth episode, which I now believe is this fifth episode. And so he, I think I think it was right. I think it was an interesting way to do it because that happens in the comic books a lot. Sometimes you have the characters not in their costumes, especially Daredevil. There's a lot of times where he's not dressed in his costume and he's just in normal street clothes and he's still beating the crap out of people. So, he's still doing the job. But, you know, I do like how they've run this new season. I think that it does a really good job at both, referencing the old series, but not being um held to it, also like trying to make it its own thing as well. And I think that from what I've heard from online, most people seem to agree with that.
Yeah, I kind of feel lukewarm to it. I think because I'm the type that's like, well, Netflix was great, like you can't change it. Um, but in a sense, it does kind of feel like not Daredevil fanfic, but I've been saying I might have said this on 616 that it feels like Daredevil on a discount, probably because I was like, where's Karen? Where's Foggy?
Yeah.
Where's the story? And I remember seeing so many TikToks being like, hey, so like Born Again has side characters that we don't remember. Like we don't know who they are. And I'm like, okay, if you're making a series and you're at least refreshing it, make someone memorable. But I understand this is Daredevil Born Again, so we've got to
Right.
start from scratch elsewhere. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm lukewarm.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think they needed to get past this. The people who came in to retool the this first season, because they didn't want to scrap it completely. They had to do some reshoots and they had to do some creative editing with some of these episodes. And I think what's going to end up happening is this next season is going to be better.
Hmm.
I think this first season was great, but I think the next season will be better. It'll pick up all these threads and it'll be more focused and more, hopefully, more to what they want to go towards in the future, and we'll get a better feeling for it. I think that the original people who were on this kind of didn't understand the character, maybe, and they were trying to do something a little bit different. That's my sense of it.
Hmm.
They had some interesting ideas with it, to kind of take it into that kind of law procedural side of things. Because I don't get me wrong, the Hector Ayala episodes were great, but it and here's the interesting thing, and this is what I'll say about this is that what happened. It felt like this season was like the new, because Daredevil, the comic book, is really great. It's got these really great runs by different writers and artists. And they're actually broken up when you go to collect it. If you talk to anybody who's a Daredevil comic book fan, you ask them which issue should I read. They will
Hmm.
tell you the specific runs by specific writers. There's Frank Miller's run, Brian Bendis's, Ed Brubaker's, Mark Wade's run is a very fun one. It's actually very different from a lot of them, as well too, because with Frank Miller, Bendis, and Brubaker is very much dark, very much a the Matt having to struggle and get through all this. But then Mark Wade comes in and makes it kind of brighter, more peppy. He takes him to San Francisco. He takes him
Mhm.
out of New York, puts him in San Francisco, and makes everything a little bit brighter and kind of happier in a way. And then it comes back, and you're um, back in New York, and you're back to um, I think Charles Soule was the next one after that, and then Chip Zdarsky just finished a really great run as well. So there's like all these interesting runs, and I think that's kind of what happened with this also, um, is that we just got a different run by a different writer in this season, and that's kind of what it feels like. You got another writer on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but the next season will be more with the new people, and I think we'll get um hopefully a better flavor to it. um you know so,
Hopefully they'll kind of settle into their tone and we'll
yeah.
get used to being in this world. And I think about it similarly to Loki, because I know this was supposed to be like an 18 episode run that was cut in half.
Yes.
And it's similar to that. Like I feel like Loki should have just been one story that you watch in one sitting. And I know a lot of people say season two is better than season one. So hopefully that'll be the same for Daredevil.
Yeah.
Unless your Netflix fans are still crying about the old series, in which case we just gotta rewatch it. We can't keep crying about it anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean ultimately I think that it just depends on on what you enjoy. And I think that it's interesting to hear you talk about it, um because I do think that ultimately it definitely wasn't as bad as it probably could have been. I
Mhm.
think the retooling helped. um what do you think about that aspect of it? Do you
Yeah.
like, based on what we heard of what it was going to be like before and what it became, are you glad they retooled it, or would you have liked to seen the version that it was before?
Because I've just become so skeptical of the Marvel shows, I don't want to see what it was before. I'm happy that we rethought things and actually finally, created some continuity from what we knew before.
Right.
Um, but it was interesting to kind of erase that very quickly and kind of say like, hey, we didn't have a lot of time to retool it. Here's what we had initially with some
Yeah.
minor changes here.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think I need to see what they had originally because we kind of already got
We
that.
kind of did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they added some stuff and retweaked and re-edited to make things different. But I think, yeah, for largely what we got was what was there. I mean, I know they had to refilm all the scenes with Vanessa and Wilson, because they had used a different actress for Vanessa for some odd reason. It's like you're gonna bring the character back, but maybe she was in a lesser capacity originally, and so maybe that was a lot of the retooling. There was um, getting that relationship back on track. I don't know exactly, because it did. What I've heard hasn't been fully clear as to what got fixed and what didn't get fixed, other than like making some connections to the past series. Um,
I'm sure they're
but
trying to keep that quiet
oh,
so we
for
don't bash
sure.
him anymore.
Right. I mean, ultimately, I think that it was successful. I think it got enough people back on board to at least hopefully give them that second chance um, at for the second season. I'm hoping that they get that second chance to show us more of what they want to do with it, and hopefully bring it back on track. Um, who knows? Honestly, it's I think that it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't. There's a lot there. Like I said, there's a wealth of very good stories to pull from, and not to like reuse them or anything like that. Because I like when Marvel takes an idea and remixes it for the movies or the TV shows or whatever.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that they can do that, like take an idea and fix it. I'm hoping that they do the whole Foggy's not really dead thing,
Mhm.
because it seems ludicrous to kill him off um permanently. So
Yeah, it almost felt cruel to Eldon Henson anyway, because he's
Yeah.
showing up to premieres and they're like, "How do you feel about Foggy being back?" And he's like, "I'm so happy."
It's really great. I'm in every episode
Yeah,
now.
covered in
Maybe
blood.
mentioned. Yeah.
Um, it's funny thinking about that for season two because one, I want that. I want Foggy back. It'd be cool to have him
Yeah.
back in that capacity, and also kind of get maybe a different tone if we take Matt to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think that the writer brain in me can't turn off. And I almost wish season one went slower. Um,
Hmm.
and then the
Interesting.
only reason I point this out is that we're talking about Wilson Fisk kind of saying, "Hey, I'm done with Kingpin. Like, I'm gonna become mayor, and hopefully, I won't go back to those like overlord tendencies." I almost wish that kind of storyline went into his mayoral campaign, and
Hmm.
that feels like it would have like raised the stakes. So then, by the time we get to the end, and then he's mayor, then we're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hell no, what's going on next?"
Right. So like this first season should have been about his campaign, and then next season should have been him being mayor. Is
Yes.
what you're saying? Yeah, I could see that. That would have been interesting. Yeah, I do. It did feel weird that they ticked it up because that would be an interesting way to play it. Like, Daredevil and other things getting in the way of his campaign and kind of like being a fly in the ointment. And then him still winning it,
Hmm.
um, and seeing how he rises above it, to get there. That would have been interesting for sure. Yeah, they did kind of really fast track that in that first episode. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
I
might
think
have
that was part
mentioned
of the
this.
retooling. I think that first episode was really the retooling episode, um, to get everything on track to what all the ideas that they were having to do in this season. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I might have mentioned this on 616, but it's like strange as a New Yorker to have a mayoral campaign go for a week,
Right.
and then to suddenly come out with a candidate. So it was kind of that one moment of like, wait, this is not right, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Um, I need it slower, so that's part of the reason why I say that.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I do think that there were aspects of it that were little too fast, aspects that were a little too slow.
Hmm.
Um I didn't like I think I didn't really care for Heather Glenn as a
Hmm.
romantic partner for him. There were too many complications with that. Um and I mean, I think the actress was fine.
Hmm.
Um, and the performance was fine. I just like story wise, I don't know, it just didn't mesh up well for me. I think that
Yeah.
was the problem, with that, just the love interest and also her being there. Um, and especially because Heather Glenn is such a nothing character in the comic books as well.
Mhm.
Like they beefed her up into a bigger position than she ever was in the comic books. So I don't know. It's interesting. And we still don't have somebody like, we could have had somebody like Typhoid Mary. It's like, when are we getting her in here?
Right.
Um, be nice maybe next season.
Maybe. I mean, I think about like the scene where he negotiates to get a lower sentence for the person who steals like a pack of caramel
Yes.
corn, and people were like, he had more chemistry with her than he ever had with Heather the entire season.
Yes.
And it's like, if we want to make Matt Murdock a womanizer, like, let's not feel the need to give him a girlfriend, maybe. Maybe that'll work better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want him to be a womanizer, but like,
Yeah, but
like
okay, but he kind of is.
I mean, yeah. 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 I think it's funny too, because I saw something online that was like, um, you know, it was something how we know Murdoch isn't really blind. It was like a picture of all his love interests and everything, and they were all like really good looking, like ridiculously good looking. I was
Yes.
like, okay, that's not really on Matt necessarily. That's on the women because Matt is so good looking. So especially Charlie Cox. So it's like
They just
I don't.
gravitate towards him.
They
It's
do.
what's natural.
I mean, he's blind, so he's really handsome. He's blind, so he's got that vulnerability to him. He's like a natural catnip. So, oh man. But yeah, no, I do like that they brought back uh Foggy and Karen. I hated that they kind of shuffled them right back off.
Mhm.
But I do like that they at least tried to connect it in a way and bring them back at least enough to I was glad to see it wasn't Karen who died because I was just like, oh my God, please don't kill another woman for a hero to be, vengeance for, it's like, we don't need that anymore. So I was glad it was Foggy, but it also played into the theory that Foggy wasn't really dead
Mhm.
because, that's this storyline literally happened in the comic books. Foggy supposedly died. Matt heard him die, but he didn't really die. And then he comes back. Now, I mean, hopefully that's what the case is. But
They need to do justice for Evelyn Henson, not for Foggy, but
Like,
for the
yeah,
actor.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on. I actually there was a what was it? I thought there was the sequence in the I think it was in the last episode. Matt's laying in the hospital bed and somebody's come walking down the hallway and he hears them walking down the hallway. It turned out it was Buck coming to kill him. But I honestly, from the back, I couldn't tell who it was at first, and I was like, "Oh, is that Foggy? Is he coming to visit him?" Like, and that's why he's kind of reacting because he's like hearing the specific footsteps and know how Foggy walks and everything. And it turned out it wasn't. I got my hopes up.
Interesting. I assumed it was Frank because I had a feeling that he would like come to save
Interesting.
him in a sense, but interesting. I didn't think it would be Foggy.
That's funny. I mean, you were closer because then he goes to his house and
Yeah.
Frank's waiting for him.
Hmm.
So, speaking of Frank, let's get into that. So, I think now, to be fair, I don't remember uh, Frank on the Netflix show that much, and I definitely did not watch the Punisher show yet. Um, and you said you hadn't watched it either, right?
So I'm maybe like 3 episodes in.
Okay.
I'm
Um, this seemed like like they Disney was like actually like, okay, we're gonna Frank be actually Frank and let him just go off the chain
Mhm.
um with the blood and the gore and just him just killing everybody. Was it like that on the show like before? I don't remember
Um,
it being that violent.
it wasn't quite like that. But I do think they kept Frank's character somewhat accurate to
Yeah,
what he
I mean
was
the
in season
character seemed
two.
fun. Yeah, the character work, especially by John Bernthal, like it definitely carried over. It felt
Hmm.
like that part of it carried over. But yeah, the level of violence and like gore that they were showing, that was what surprised me.
I
So
think all around, I would say the gore and the violence has kind of increased.
okay,
Like even in episode 2 when Matt breaks the guy's arm, like we're seeing blood gush out.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, we might have seen some blood in Netflix, but I feel like Disney has been like, hey, we've got money for blood bags. Feel free to use them.
right. And we're just gonna make this mature rated content anyway. So yeah, have at it, have fun.
Yep.
Which is, hey, I'm glad Disney's letting them, stretch out a bit because there was a concern that with these Marvel properties that they were going to neuter them. They were going to keep them hampered.
Hmm.
And I'm glad to see, especially something like Deadpool, like, when Deadpool and Wolverine was being talked about, there was talk that, oh, well, Disney being Disney, they're not going to do an R-rated Deadpool, but they certainly really did.
Hmm.
So, that's, I mean, I think that movie was more hard R than either the previous two Deadpool movies. So, um,
Sure. I
I,
mean, I even think about like when the Netflix series first dropped on Disney Plus,
right.
like the leveling for the amount of shows or things that you could watch became mature
Yeah.
simply for those shows. So it
Right.
really did open the gateway for them to say, hey, now we have this on Disney Plus. You're now going to see that on shows that we produce.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad. I'm glad they went that way and said, hey, look, this is separate from our Disney content. This is Marvel,
Hmm.
so we're going to go ahead and allow this. You have to turn on that filter for yourself if you want to see it. That's great,
Hmm.
but we'll go ahead and make this content. And I'm happy they did that. And I'm happy they're allowing them to, play in that world enough that they don't have to, calm that down any. And they can actually show Frank for who he is. Because yeah, no, Frank was brutal in that last episode.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved it. I think that was interesting. I'm glad he got that chance to, be there in front of the cops and stuff like that. Actually,
Hmm.
kind of like I love that they did it for the show too. They didn't like wimp out on it. They actually had the cops all in those outfits with the skull on them and everything like that. And they had Punisher just saying, "You guys are ridiculous. This is not who I am." And so I was really like I loved that they did that so much because we've seen it happening in our day-to-day society and all these people doing it. So maybe it probably won't be enough of a wake-up call for them, but maybe hopefully it will be a little bit. Um they'll just think
Yeah.
everybody's being woke. So
No, no, hopefully it is a crash course.
yeah.
I am thinking, just kind of thinking about how Frank was used in the show. He kind of feels like it's proof enough that Born Again was kind of a crash course into the Daredevil series, period.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like I'm thinking about the initial conversation, like when Matt first finds Frank. It's a conversation that's pulled straight from season 2 of Daredevil. And
Mm,
this was something that I kind of argued with my boyfriend about because he's like the massive fan of the shows. And he's like,
right.
yeah, season 2 is so badass, whatever. And I'm like, but this conversation feels like it's out of nowhere. But we also need that conflict to be quickly introduced just so then that way the finale can land.
Right.
And I think that was something I continued to struggle with. So that's why I say it's a crash course, no matter
Yeah,
what you're doing in the show.
I think that's one of those weird things where it's like that's where it can feel inconsistent with each other because they probably did insert that. Um that probably was I maybe Frank wasn't part of the original idea because you do have that little one-off scene with him earlier in the season and then just him at the end, and this last episode definitely felt maybe a little bit tonally different than the rest of the season had. And so I feel like the season was kind of bookended by these almost new episodes. The first episode and the last episode feel like they were like, okay, well, we're gonna. There's probably still had some sequences that were filmed originally, but a lot of the new stuff came into those 2 episodes, and so especially all the Frank stuff, you needed that earlier scene with Frank to get to this scene so that you could understand why Frank would come back and help him. And be there when he needed him the most. Um, I don't know, little. It's so hard to know exactly, and at the same time, you do want to know, and you don't want to know exactly what happened with everything. As much as we got all of that, um, what we saw this season is probably mostly what they had filmed previously, and they just kind of retooled it. But yeah, it definitely. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
It's weird to try to parse out exactly what they did and didn't do. So
Hmm. It's kind of apparent when you see it when like anybody from Netflix comes back. It's
right,
almost like, oh wait, this had something before it. Um, that like you mentioned, it was bookended. Like Vanessa is now sprinkled in. She's now become like a big chunk of like the consequences of the story.
yeah,
And whereas she might not have been before, since we had recast Vanessa. Maybe we
yeah.
didn't have as much of
That's
attachment
what
to
I'm
her.
feeling like. Like they probably put her to the side and had her as like literally just a side character. Probably with very little consequence to the story as a whole. And I think that those parts, especially the parts with Wilson, um, because you rarely saw her um, in sequences with anybody else. It was a lot of very isolated moments and a lot of it with Wilson.
Hmm.
So that I could see where that would have been easier to reframe it all to make her more consequential, both to the overall story and to Wilson's story specifically.
Yeah, and I almost wanted more from her in a sense, and I'm just gonna complain about the fact that things were lacking. So I'm gonna say things that I wanted.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
as we know, Vanessa kind of comes into the picture because Wilson's been gone. Wilson was shot in the face, but you can't really tell by the
Right.
way he was making special contacts, so then Maya could understand him. Um, and then comes back, and Vanessa's basically saying, "Hey, I ran this business without you." And I almost wanted more of that push and pull to kind of say,
Yeah.
like, I've become the leader now. What are you doing here? Um, Whereas I feel like they kind of worked alongside each other instead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I wanted like because that was a narrative arc through the whole thing was that he was trying to repair the marriage.
Hmm.
She seemed reluctant, but over the course of it, she came around and a little too easily,
Hmm.
from my taste. I felt like, yeah, it should have still been um her like basically them becoming antagonistic towards each other in a way, or at least not coming back together like they did. I
Yeah.
felt that was a little bit more disingenuous compared to how she was in the beginning of the season. Like you said, she was like, "You were gone. I built the business. I built it better than you did."
Hmm.
And then towards the end of it, he's like, "Look, I just, we need to work together. We need to be together. Blah blah blah. I'm going to show you my love. Blah blah blah." And I was like, I don't know. It just did. Yeah, that part of it just really didn't work for me, overall, because I did feel like you said, that it felt like we needed more conflict between them. It did tie up a little too neatly, and it would have been nice to see them be conflicted, and maybe eventually, maybe in season two, they could come back together, through whatever, connection would have brought them back. But until then, it would have been nice to have gotten through this whole season, and maybe into the next season, this conflict where she's working against him, um, not necessarily on purpose, but her way of running the business now is at odds with his goals.
Hmm.
And it would have been a nice little extra thorn in his side.
Yeah. And I mean
Because
that
it
that
did seem,
final dinner was pretty tense. So
yeah,
you may be onto something.
yeah. I mean, who knows? We'll see. But I think that they just tied it up a little too neatly. He managed to do everything with, shutting down New York and everything. It just felt a little too easy at times.
Hmm.
Everything that he was doing.
Yeah, and
And I know they had to do it based on, what they already had filmed and everything. They didn't want to, play it out too much because they already had a bunch of stuff filmed. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I really wish that relationship would have been, broken a little bit longer than it had. So
yeah, like build out time. Give me a mayoral campaign. Give me a true conflict
yeah.
kind of outside of the marriage, because the true conflict is the fact that she ran the business without him, and not that
Yes.
she found a little sweet treat when he wasn't there.
Right.
Um, so that just felt off. As you kind of
Yeah.
can tell, I mean, I don't know how different it is in the comics. Like, it never felt like Wilson and Vanessa were together because we was like, I love you. It's more like we're bad and we're bad together, and that's why we
Right.
like this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's what it literally felt like. It was like just two bad people going, "Yeah, we're bad, and we're never going to be able to find anybody who can be just as bad as each other. So we might as well be together." It's like, that's what it felt like, instead of like, no, we actually really love each other. It's like, because I felt like in the Netflix show, you could feel like they loved each other.
Hmm.
There was an actual connection. She made him softer, and she gave him a like a purpose and a kind of a reason in a lot of ways, whereas in this, yeah, it was just like, I don't know, it was just really totally different. And I can see where the possibility is that because they had a different actress originally for it, she was a much more minor character. And then when they retooled it, they were like, no, we got to bring her in and we got to cause conflict, sort of. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's
We'll
just
see.
weird.
We
Go
shall
ahead.
see. I mean, I wonder, do we know who Vanessa was initially, like the other actress, or no?
I believe so. Let me look it up. It definitely was not the same person, but
Mm. Yeah, they probably raised the stakes once they were like, "Hey, we're gonna bring the Netflix actors back." Because if
yeah,
it's
exactly.
somebody who's not as well known, maybe then she was more minor. That's just a
It
theory.
says Sandrine Holt was originally cast in the role. So I recognize the name.
She looks like she could be a Vanessa.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and she's kind of been on a lot of TV shows. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's so weird that she would have been like they would have recast, especially because it seems like um Ayelet Zur, who's the original actress, it seemed like she was available.
Hmm.
Maybe she wasn't available during the original when they were going to do it, but I feel like she probably was, um, and they just didn't. They were going in a different direction, so they were like, "Well, let's just get somebody else." It's like, but why even have the character thing? You should have just not had the character at all. So,
Right. And it's interesting because we say like Wilson wasn't there and Vanessa ran things on her own, but he wasn't there because one, he got shot. As his wife, don't you think you'd visit him?
yeah,
Like, why are we having this conflict? Because he
it's
was
so
shot for a
weird.
second.
Yeah, it was so weird. It's like they made it seem like honestly they said it made it seem like he'd just gone off on his own and then like and all the stuff that was going on with Echo and Hawkeye and all them in the Hawkeye series that all of that like was just him doing his own thing and like after the events of Hawkeye and during the events of Echo that he was just like just left and didn't have anything to do with her and he just left her there to pick up the pieces or whatever and it's like but why would he have done that like that didn't make any sense like to the character or anything else yeah so there's definitely some weird um uh inconsistencies with what they were going for and I think that's ultimately why Disney was like and they probably tested it. They probably showed this to people and the people were like, we don't understand what you guys are doing. What's going on here? And so I'm glad they retooled it because at the very least, it felt more in line with the Netflix shows. It still felt a little bit apart from it. And it always was going to be in some way. Because it's been what, like 10 years since the last season of it.
Yeah.
Um, but it at least it felt closer to it by doing the retooling. And at least they kind of fixed some of that issue. But it definitely felt like they were going for a like bringing in new cast, new love interest, new people to surround him with. That new law firm that he's a part of and having Cherry and all that stuff. It's just like, okay, well, we're going to just forget about everything else. We're just going to bring in all these new people. And we're going to retool. And again, that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's like bringing a new writer into a book and them creating a whole new thing for the character. As long as the character feels similar, it should be okay. But I think that was the problem was that a lot of the characters didn't feel similar anymore. And so I think that's what the broken part of it was.
Yeah. And I hope that at least season two has some more cohesiveness because we're not, deciding whether or not to bring original actors back or hopefully not interrupted by a pandemic or a strike.
Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully, at least. Um, but I mean, there's of course too much comparison because you have the Netflix series and what we're expecting. Like even Buck, people kept calling him like Wesley Light or Discount
right,
Wesley. It doesn't
right.
help that the actor even looks like him.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's like if you're gonna try to do something that's born again, at least provide me with characters that are not as similar as what we had before, and maybe give them a different purpose. Who knows?
right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I am seeing that Benson and Moorhead, who were brought in to help with the retooling, they directed the first episode and the last two episodes. So I'm
Mm.
assuming those are actually the ones that were part of the retooling. Because there's no way, I don't think there'd have been any way for them to get director credit on. There must have been significant amount of new stuff in those episodes for them to get the credit for it. Um, so at least three out of the nine episodes were fairly new material.
That makes sense. You
Um,
did say they were like bookends, and that's kind of what it
yeah.
felt like.
Um, but yeah, it's just I mean, they were still written. like co-written by the original showrunner, Dario Scartapane. Um, I think, well, maybe he, you know what? I think he was the one brought in. Never mind. No, he was brought in. Who was the original one? Sorry. Um,
It's okay. I feel like I'm lacking on my research as well.
no, I know. I'm always bad at the extra stuff. Do, do, do. Oh yeah, Matt Corman and Chris Ord. Um, I think it was, yeah, they were let go as the head writers. So yeah, so Scartapane came in to do the um so those Matt Corman and Chris Ord wrote the second episode, and then they had different writers for the rest of the um, season, but it definitely, the Dario Scartapane was on the first episode and those last two episodes. So yeah, so it definitely, the first episode, the last two episodes were the bookends and the ones that I think were most retooled in terms of like new material. Um, so I think that's kind of where it feels like that's why those seem a little bit more narratively consistent in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. Um, whereas the rest of the season kind of feels, I guess, not uneven, but definitely not the same flavor, I guess.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of speak to like the Marvel television in general. I mean, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I feel like this finale wasn't as rushed as maybe as the others
Mm,
might have been. Yes, we did end up kind of like throwing Frank and Karen into it, but I feel like because we're getting that second season, they can really take their time with it.
yeah,
And that's probably to the credit of the ex showrunner coming back. Um, but who knows if maybe that was a choice Disney made because we were splitting it at half. But I did appreciate that. I think that's part of the reason why I appreciate Daredevil Born Again more than the other Marvel series, because I
right.
feel like we got to take some kind of time. Maybe the beginning was a little rushed, but let's say
Yeah.
we took time in the end.
Yeah. I think that was one of those things where because they needed to retool as well, that they were able to kind of take a look at what was working, what wasn't working, and then craft a finale that was going to be um and because they knew they were going to have that second season, that they knew where they needed to point towards. And I think a lot of these other shows, um maybe they don't, because so many of them haven't gotten second seasons and probably won't get second seasons, that they just kind of have to wrap things up. And sometimes that feels a little dissatisfying because you want the characters to be able to continue, and they leave it kind of on this weird little sort of um continuation, but also, well, we're wrapping it up here in case nothing happens. So
Yeah,
we'd love to continue, but no. So
and then you hope they appear in the movies, and then they don't. Like I was
yeah.
anxiously awaiting somebody from a television show in those in that announcement for Doomsday, the cast seats,
Right.
and then no one showed up, and I was
Yeah.
very confused.
Now, to be fair, I will say I doubt that's the full cast. Um, you know, because there's no way that we're not going to have some other people popping up into this. It was weird that
Mhm.
Tom Holland wasn't announced as part of it. There's definitely some weird like big name people that seem like they're missing, but also you could definitely slot in some of the smaller characters as well, to even just as cameos or something. And so I
Mhm.
think that's largely where we'll see it, is more cameo style stuff. Um, but I really hope that we're getting some of them coming back. We'll see. I don't know. It's an odd thing what they're doing. I think they're trying to find their footing again. I think the writer strike and the pandemic really, really kind of put things off for them. Um, and so I think that kind of ruined the momentum that they had going, and they've had a couple of other weird setbacks with things. And so I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know.
I hope they can get it back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope for those cameos. I mean, we've got a couple good lawyers to choose from, so if somebody needs
Yeah.
it, let's
Yeah.
say you've got somebody from another multiverse you think is impersonating you, you need representation, you know who to call, pick New York or
Exactly.
California, your choice.
Absolutely. Just don't pick anywhere in the middle of America because the only people in America only live in New York or California. So,
Yep, that's true.
yeah, no, it's yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I'm really hoping they can kind of, because they haven't done anything for the second season, that they've kind of gotten their pieces set up. They've got where they want to go. Let's see where they go with this. And it's interesting to look back at that the finale too, and Matt talking to all those people about, taking back the city and everything. And the implication was there that the possibility for the other defenders could come back.
Mm.
And that's like fingers crossed because I'd like to see most of them come back. Um, and
I,
so it'd be what?
I can see what you mean by most of them. But go ahead.
Yeah. I don't have as big a problem with Iron Fist as other people do. Um, I don't get me wrong, he's not as engaging as the others. I'll say that.
Mhm.
Like I think the actor did the best he could. Um, but I do think there because that was a series that got rushed. I know that he was he didn't have time to learn a lot of the martial arts before they started filming, and he kind of learned it as it went along.
Mhm.
So that's why it seems like, and for a guy who's supposed to know very good martial arts, it comes off very stiff and very unnatural. It was like, I don't know, man. You guys gotta get some um, um, stunt doubles in there to do his work for him.
Mhm.
But no, I would love to see Mike Coulter and Kristen Ritter for sure come back um, as Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and I'd love to see them have their relationship actually gel like it did in the comic books. That was always for me a very missed opportunity with the Netflix shows, that they did not have them date more and become a married couple in that. So, and I get why, because they were trying to give them their own shows. It just, yeah, it would have been nice to see that connection happen as well. So maybe we'll see. But I do like the fact that he's kind of gathering people of the city to take it back, and more of a. It felt very much of its time. Very much kind of like speaking to our current situation in this country, trying to take on something that seems larger than life, and that all we have is the people here to fight for it. So
Yeah. And I mean, as a New Yorker, the best thing about New York is the people here. It's also the worst thing simultaneously.
right, right.
But I do appreciate, I don't know if you've seen all the jokes about like how Daredevil has now expanded his scope beyond Hell's Kitchen, that like he's now a hero of New York, and hopefully, I don't know, Hawkeye or other Avengers can step in because New York is
Yeah,
more than just 10 blocks of Hell's Kitchen. So we
right.
shall see.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it. I always, it's always funny because people talk about that. It's like, where are the other heroes in New York when Daredevil's fighting somebody big and bad, and it's like they're fighting somebody bigger and badder. They're doing something else, and a lot of the Avengers aren't they don't stay around in New York. Like they come and gather in New York, but that's like they don't stay there most of the time. At least nowadays, and especially with the MCU, they're not like beholden to staying around. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, it would be funny if they could pull in somebody else. I thought, hey, great opportunity because we had uh Kamala Khan's father in that one episode. It'd be a great opportunity for a Daredevil Miss Marvel team up. Um, be a fun little thing. I know they wouldn't do it in the Daredevil show, just because she's so much lighter, and it'd be more similar to the She-Hulk version of Matt,
Mhm.
which I know everybody. There's a lot of people who hated that version. I'm like, it was fun. Let it go.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
that's what's great about, like, even with comic books, like you get different versions of Matt. Like, how he is in his own comic book is always going to be a little bit different than how he appears, like, say, in a Spider-Man crossover or something like that. So
Yeah, and he's had so many cameos in between like the Netflix show and now.
yeah.
Part of me was wondering like when exactly all of this happened, but you're right, like tonally he was different in every single cameo he did.
Yeah,
Um, so we can definitely have different versions of Daredevil. That's totally fine with us, at least.
exactly. So, hopefully they'll keep mixing it up and crossing it over, and we'll get a little bit more consistency. We'll see. I don't know. I know that they're changing their tactic on the shows, because previous to this show, they were running all the shows as if they were movies. They were just long form movies, where um, kind of like the director was in charge.
Mm.
And TV shows are more writer driven. And so I know with this retooling, they kind of went, okay, we need to get back to that, like having a writer's room, and having showrunners that are like more writer driven, and get back to that kind of focus and making it more like an actual TV show. And I know that they said that that's what they're going to do moving forward with the Disney Plus shows. So hopefully we'll see some kind of more, I don't know, not necessarily traditional television shows, but closer to it, I think.
So like
Um,
actual TV. This is why we're calling it Marvel Television.
right, exactly. Not just like, like long form movie cut of different parts.
Yeah.
So, which I honestly haven't had a problem with most of the TV shows in the way they've been done. I've actually enjoyed quite a bit of them. And there's only been a couple that I've been kind of but most of the shows I've enjoyed for the most part. So um, I don't think they were necessarily doing anything wrong, but I do think that it will help them focus it a little bit better and maybe not have this problem in the future.
Yeah.
So that they had
Maybe
with
they can use
Daredevil.
like Born Again's kind of structure and build out as a template for the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, but I mean, obviously learn from the mistakes of retooling,
Yeah.
not having to retool every season with something, but hopefully they'll be able to focus it a little bit better. So I don't know, we'll see. But overall, well, did you enjoy this new Daredevil? Um Overall, like, obviously you have issues with it, but did you, at the end of it, did you enjoy it, or did it still leave you wanting more? What would you say?
Oh, I would say if I had to rank it out of 10, I'd probably give it a 7.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair. I think I'd
I
agree with you.
yeah, I hope I haven't been bashing it the entire episode. Jeez.
No, no,
No.
not at all. No, the things you've been saying have been very informed and like very much on point with, I think, the general gist of what people have been feeling about it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I think 7 out of 10 definitely is a definition of lukewarm. I did enjoy it though. I was still tuned in every week, made it a thing like Tuesday evening. We're sat on the couch and we're watching this.
yeah,
Um, and it is a little interesting because for Netflix, like you got to binge the entire series, whereas this one
yeah.
is week by week. So hopefully maybe my opinion would change if I sat down and watched it all the way through. Admittedly, I haven't, but hopefully I will.
Yeah, and I think that definitely is a thing that was different with it. I mean, because the first season was what? It was like 13 episodes, wasn't it? Like, of the Netflix series.
Just about, yeah.
So I mean, you're looking at a big binge there, originally. I do think that the Netflix model is not necessarily the best model anymore. It was interesting for a time, but I'm glad to see most shows have gone. And I used to not agree with this. I liked the binge formula of it, but because I do like to binge watch shows sometimes. Like, I love being able to, just sit down and watch all the season at once if I have a chance to. But I do kind of enjoy the week to week, because it
Mhm.
gets you talking about it, and they're starting to see that. as well that with a lot of these shows, it benefits them to have that week by week instead of dropping it all at once, like Netflix does, people talking about it strongly for a couple of weeks and then it dying off.
Mhm.
Um, so I do think that by extending it out, they get that long term chatter online and getting people interested, and they have a chance to really kind of engage people. People can then go back, and that's what's great about it is because it's available online. Because it used to be like, regular TV, if you missed episodes, you missed out. You did not get to until they replayed it, hopefully in a repeat later on down the road. But if they didn't do that, you were stuck. You were kind of screwed for being able to rewatch a show.
Oh man,
But
you're out
now,
of the conversation.
hey, what?
Out of the conversation because you
Yeah,
missed
you
an
missed out.
episode.
You'd
Yeah.
hear everybody talking about something. You'd be like, "Oh, I missed that episode," and they're like, "Well, it sucks for you. It's going to be a while before you get to see it, if ever." But yeah, nowadays, like, say you miss that episode, and you miss it for maybe you miss a couple of weeks. You're busy, you got work or something like that. But you can then go back, binge up to the current time, and then, or say you want to wait, you don't care for the week to week, you can wait. You're going to miss out and potentially be spoiled, but that's those chances you take. And that's happened to me where there's shows that I don't care about, so much getting spoiled or whatever. I can't watch it week to week. I'm going to wait for it. And so Daredevil was not one of those. Daredevil I watched. Yeah, I did the same thing. It was usually later at night when I got to watch it, but I definitely was watching it every Tuesday. So uh, I mean, hopefully they'll continue that. And I mean, I know Disney Plus will because they've done that with all the shows. But I think the Netflix model doesn't kind of work as well as they thought it would. I think dropping it all at once is not the best. I think that and I think that for the week to week, if it works week to week, and then going back to rewatch it will be interesting to see if it works as well or maybe better if you do the binge.
Mhm. Yeah, and it could be kind of like HBO Sundays. You're reminding me of it, of kind of like the way
Yeah,
they're structuring how their shows are released. Like you got White Lotus week to week. You saw the finale, and guess what? Next week, if you're a fan of The Last of Us, it's now out.
yeah,
So it would have been cool if they could have lined it up that way, because I feel like then you would remember more of the continuity. And let's say we got She-Hulk and then Daredevil, you got used to being in that lawyerly type mindset, but then also realize, oh crap, this is what Matt is doing when he got back home.
yeah.
Um, so it would have been interesting to see that format as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool if they could have synchronized it a little bit better, for sure. Like done that where they like, because you had his appearance in Spider-Man and then you had his appearance in She-Hulk, and those were fairly close enough together. They kind of wet your whistle for that. But yeah, being that it took another several years to finally get this show out, it was kind of like, well, is it ever really going to happen? Like, what's with all this teasing, man?
Yep.
So I'm glad they finally got it out, and hopefully it won't take so long for the next season. As far as I know, it's coming out next year.
Yeah, they're filming it now, so
Yeah,
we'll probably have it in no time.
yeah. So hopefully it won't be hopefully it won't be too long, and hopefully it will be good, and we'll be able to uh, enjoy it, and it won't be like having to be retooled a bunch. Because I think that there were aspects of it that kind of hampered it this year, but I think they did as the best they can. I do agree with you. I think I would probably give it close to a 7 out of 10 as well. Um, just because it wasn't as great as it could have been, um, but was pretty good in general. And I think that they saved what they could. I imagine that if they had left it the way it was, we probably wouldn't be talking about it as as well as we are.
Yeah, we're still here trying to get our fix.
Yeah,
Hopefully
exactly.
it'll just be better.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Was there anything that we did not mention that you did want to talk about? Any aspect of the show?
Hmm. Not too much. I had mentioned things about side characters and whatnot, but
Yeah.
not sure they're strong enough to really go through them.
Yeah, like that was the thing was like BB Uric, like she was fine, but like she definitely wasn't Ben.
Yeah.
You definitely miss that aspect of it. Michael Gandolfini, I can't remember his character's name.
Daniel Blake.
Daniel Blake. Um, I was really on the fence with him most of the seasons. Like, I didn't understand his motivations, other than just being kind of like a toady for him the whole
Mhm.
time. It's like I didn't know if was he really like gunning for a top position, or was he just that weirdly dumb that he lucked into it all? Is like it was really kind of, or did he like, because some people were like, trying to say that maybe he was the son of a character that was killed by Wilson earlier and that he was there to eventually get his revenge and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that would have been kind of interesting. But it was just like, I don't know. It just felt like to me, he felt kind of like a lackluster character.
Yeah. And
And
you would
kind of,
think BB would take that storyline given like what happened with her uncle.
yeah.
Um, but we didn't get that from Daniel. And he did give off Nepo baby vibes, but I don't know
Yeah.
if that's because he is one in real life in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The
But
son
that
of
would have
James
explained,
Gandolfini. Yeah.
yeah, that would have explained his character a bit more at least.
Yeah, yeah. It just like they could have leaned into something. He just felt like, I don't know, this just really kind of irritating toady guy the whole time. And it was a good performance. He was doing fine with it. It just like I think the writing for it just wasn't that great. Um, and then the excuse me. And then the like the vigilante task force cops and everything like that. I would just like, I don't know, it's just so much like there were so many things that could have been picked up on that weren't picked up on, or avenues that they could have gone down. But because they focus so much on Wilson and Vanessa, I think that you kind of miss out on some of that. I think that it could have created a much broader, more interesting world if you'd explored some more of these characters in different ways.
Yeah. And I
I,
think, again, that's where I think a mayoral campaign could have come in because all these characters could have taken advantage of that. Like, we're going to prove to you that we can take you to the top, to the seat that you want. And
yeah.
here's what we're willing to do to get there instead of having the scene of, I will burn for you if need be.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it just yeah. No, I think I agree with you. I think that yeah, this first season should have been about the campaign and then ending with him becoming mayor at the same time as Matt is just like struggling to, stop him, and dealing with all the other things that are going on. But also at the same time, maybe not even having them coming into as much direct conflict and it just being like he's trying to do stuff, like Matt's trying to do stuff, and he just keeps getting waylaid by all the other stuff that's going on in his life, which
Mm.
is typical of the comic books as well. Like Matt's life is just, you know, it rivals Spider-Man's for,
Yeah.
Peter Parker's for, the amount of bad shit that happens to him. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think that, yeah, it could have been different, could have been better in a lot of ways. I think they kind of missed the mark, but I think they did as best they could. And I think that ultimately that's where we land on it. So, all right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Yeah. So I am on Bluesky at the Market Rights, also on Substack, and hopefully Remote Watch will come back from hiatus. But if you're looking for more of my voice, the Remote Watch podcast, you can find on any platform with podcasts.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you for coming on again. I very much appreciate it. It's great to have you on.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me talk Charlie Cox yet again.
Of course. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.